I had this idea that I was, this was the moment when I'm finally gonna go method, and I'm gonna do like I'm gonna be silent for the whole shoot, and I let my fiance Kelly know, and she's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? You're gonna go away for 2 months and not talk?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm an actor, and this is my process." And I got on the plane and landed in Mexico City, and it was this big city. I was feeling really lonely, so I picked up the phone and I called Kelly right away. I was like, we're going to be talking, and up until the shoot, so we can say goodnight and FaceTime and all that. She was like, okay. And then I, got in the car on my way to set, and then I was really, really silent. But then in the makeup chair, then I started talking. So it was like a total failure. But I felt like the car ride there was a mission accomplished. So,
yeah. You watched a little bit of the movie yourself, right? How are you guys watching yourselves on screen? Is it you like that experience, or?
Oh, I love it.
You do?
It's the best. No, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. No, I actually hadn't seen the first half of this film with an audience before, so I was curious. It's pretty cool to get to be part of sort of an experiment, and the fear was you do a film with no dialogue, and people are going to be bored out of their minds, or on their phones or whatever. But yeah, so far it seems like you guys are still here, so that's good.
They're still here. Nobody was bored, right? Nobody was bored. You guys, if this feels so special, first of all, thank you for doing this. Thanks to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation and everyone at Lionsgate for putting this on. And I would, like I said, I would be happy to talk to you any day of the week, and I'm more excited to talk to you tonight after the screening. But I'm also just excited to talk to you at this moment in time, coming out of a strike where you can actually talk about your work. And I'm just curious, how are you feeling about coming out of the strike, and how did you spend these past couple of months, Catalina?
Striking. Yeah, I went out there and I joined the strike. I think it was very important to do that. And I was happy to do that. When our fellow writers were striking, we were together. And when they made a deal, they came with us and we strike together. It felt really good. But now I am relieved. It's great that the timing worked out, especially for this movie. That I didn't think that this was gonna happen, because the strike. The movie's coming out next week, and we didn't know if we were able to do this. So it's because it's such a special movie, I am so relieved and so happy that you were able to be here with you. Doing this, it's great.
So great. And Joel, how was the strike for you, and what did you get into? Yeah.
We were all hoping that it was get resolved as fast as possible, but I think after it went on for so long, it was important that we kind of got over the goal line with something great. So it seems like I haven't studied the end result, but it seems like everyone's happy, so I'm happy.
Got to do some studying in the next couple days. You mentioned that this movie is a very special movie, and I can imagine you want to talk about a movie like this. But one of the reasons that it's so special is it marks the first American movie by John Woo since 2003's Paycheck. And so I would just love to hear from both of you, I assume maybe someone from your team called you, but what was that call like when they said, I have this project, it's Silent Night, and it's John Woo's return to American
Basically
film.
that. Yeah. It's John Woo, silent. It's no dialogue, it's Joel Kinnaman, and I'm like, okay. But then, the beautiful thing was I talked to John, and he didn't say anything about no dialogue. He didn't say anything about, action. And of course, watching John Woo, what he does. But he described the movie as this love story and deep pain from a father, and how he's going to heal his heart or something like that. Very poetical. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to do this movie because he has a heart, you know, like his movies are not just, it's not just random action. It's not just random killing just because. Like if you, and I was saying this yesterday, I was talking to a friend of mine and he pointed out that if you take his action from his films, there's a deeper story. He always tells a deeper story, and that's why his films are so captivating, at least for me. You're not just watching, I'm gonna say the name of the movie, and I'm sorry, Transformers, you know, like just a random, you know, like random thing. Like I don't get it. I don't get those kind of movies. I don't. But when you watch a John Woo movie, it's like you get it. You get why he goes in a crazy revenge, and he goes to the end. I mean, like he, you know how it ends. It's it was a no-brainer. After I read the script, it was a no-brainer, and I trusted that he was going to do a fantastic job. And you know, working with Joel and talking to him, you know, I knew that the end result was going to be incredible.
And Joel, what was the call like for you? And when somebody said John Woo has this movie and there's no dialogue?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really exciting. For me, I started out as in the theater in Sweden, and you know, went to theater school there, and you know, so I was like a nerdy drama actor, and then when I came over here, I started doing more and more action, and really enjoyed that, you know, that part of the work. But at the same time, I felt like if there was, I was always looking for an acting challenge within that world, and this was, you know, really that. It's yeah, it was because the having no dialogue, I realized pretty quickly that it made it a lot more challenging in some ways, because I think we all we use our voice to sort of get away with maybe not having the complete emotional engagement that we should have in that moment. You know, you see a lot of that on American TV. I call it like American whisper acting. And it's like, how could you do this to me? Oh my God. And it's, you know, it's kind of bullshit, but you know, we all do it sometimes. But here it's like you don't get away with it. You gotta sort of have, when it's only your eyes, you gotta get the emotion in there. So we were acting like pretty silly people on set. We were screaming and jumping around, trying to
Especially with John.
pump
I mean,
up
like,
some emotion.
there's just one scene that I think is my favorite scene where, you know, she's crying and then it becomes a bullet. I remember him telling me, which eye do you cry best? From right or left? I'm like, maybe right. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
right, yeah.
And it was like, okay, the
think I'm a
camera here
lefty,
is like,
actually, yeah.
exactly. It's like, okay, cry. And it's like, okay. Like it was, and from the right eye, it had to be on the right because the light and everything was on the right eye. And it was so much
professional,
pressure.
Catalina. You know, you can request which eye the tear comes from. Let's do it left this time because the
funny
light
thing
is
was,
coming. You know.
it was dripping
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And then this one was like just one tiny, and he's
Such a
like, just
pro.
more, and I'm like, I can't do it. It was
So impressive.
something else.
It is so impressive because I remember that scene too, and I even wrote as one of my questions, and this is just a
Great.
silly actor process question, but you both are great criers, and I wondered, you know, I mean, you know,
That's
we're
the nicest thing.
yeah,
who's
you
ever said
really
to me.
are. My goal tonight is to make you cry before this is over. No, how do you do that? And I know that's like a dumb, silly actor question. It's like, how do you do what you do? But when you need to cry on cue, what is your process? Where do you go emotionally?
I can't cry on cue. I think that's impossible. I think you need a process. You need time. You need to, especially, you know, what Joel was saying at the beginning. It's when you don't have dialogue, it's much more complicated because the dialogue will lead you to the crying. So when you start a scene where you're completely broken, you need that process to, you know, you need to work before a lot. And I think we did a lot of working prior to the scenes, and you know, before shooting and on the day, like we worked a lot, and you know, we gave each other time, and of course John understood that we're not robots, that we're like, okay, we can cry, and he gave us enough time to prepare, and we would tell him, you know, I think we're ready. And it was a very collaborative, especially with him. He understood very well that it was not easy to do, and especially, you know, working with each other. You know, I don't think you can do it by yourself. It's like we're feeding
For me, it was really easy.
each other.
Super easy for me. Yeah.
You're so lucky.
Joel, what's your process? Because this would, it feels like it would be a dream role for an actor. I mean, you get to be an action hero, but you also get to be a grieving husband who is, you know, going through this emotion of losing a son and, you know, pulling away from your wife. I mean, you really express a range of emotions. So what is your process to get there emotionally?
Well, on this one, it was a lot of different, you know, you kind of throw everything at the, you know, whatever you, at the kitchen sink or, yeah, I mean, there's different scenes. It kind of depends on, you know, how the emotion is supposed to come and where it's coming. I find I have a need to sort of lose control in some way. And sometimes that can mean just like screaming. Sometimes it's like just breathing and relaxing. Sometimes I break things. I find myself not going so much to memories. I go more to imagination.
And do you break things like in the scene or before, just on set?
It's very
in your
dangerous.
There's
trailer?
a lot of furniture that broke on this movie. Yeah, the set designer was not happy at all.
Did anyone here catch Joel on Fallon the other night? Yeah? It was good, right? He's wearing one guy, the guy in the front row, somebody in the back there
My
too.
friend,
This
I
guy.
told
This
him
is your
to
friend.
watch. Yeah. Yes, it doesn't seem to have the same reach these days, you know.
But this is better for me. This is better for me that only one person saw, because you were wearing a great shirt, by the way. But you told this great story. I don't know if you obviously missed it, but you're gonna get the live version right now. You told that amazing story just about how you approached this movie and how you wanted to go method. I hate to be that guy at the party that says, "Please repeat that story," but please repeat that story, because it's so interesting of like how you wanted to approach this movie. And
Yeah, well, I had this idea that I was, you know, this was the moment when I'm finally gonna go method, and I'm gonna do like I'm gonna be silent for the whole shoot, and I let my fiance Kelly know. I was like, okay, so this is gonna be tough for us, you know, because I'm not gonna be talking for the whole shoot, and we're not even gonna be talking on the phone. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're gonna go away for 2 months and not talk? I'm like, yes, I'm an actor, and this is my process. And then so we had you know, coaching session with our relationship coach, Mark. Everyone needs a Mark. So we finally found you know, where we're gonna do this. And I got on the plane and landed in Mexico City, and it was this big city. I was feeling really lonely, so I picked up the phone and I called Kelly right away. I was like, so you know, we're going to be talking, you know, and up until the shoot, you know, so we can say goodnight and FaceTime and all that. She was like, okay, and then I, you know, got in the car on my way to set, and then I was really, really silent, but then in the makeup chair, then I started talking. Yeah, so it was like a total failure. But I felt like the car ride there was a mission accomplished. So, yeah, I just can't figure out the whole method thing. You know, it's not working for me.
see, that was a great story, right? You ask him to retell it too. That was better than I could have imagined. But the fact that you couldn't talk while you were performing, how did that impact your days on set, or how did it change your performance? You obviously had to lean into acting more with your eyes and your body, and you both have done that plenty of times in your career. But specifically, what was that like on this movie?
I don't think it made a difference. You know, I think for me it was different because I didn't touch a gun or kill anyone or flipped a car or, you know, be there for an explosion. So for me, this was like my drama where I feel very comfortable in, and I knew where she was going. Like I knew where she started and how she ended. So the fact that she didn't say a word was great. It was great.
Joel, what about for you, acting with your eyes and your body as opposed to leaning on those whisper talking and other
No, I mean, it was challenging to figure out how you tell that story of the moment. So I found myself like making up things. For example, the scene in the when I was like looking in the mirror, that was just, you know, a moment of like looking in the mirror. But then in the script, but then it just became something more, because we're always sort of trying to be creative and figure out like how do we tell the story. And I can understand why John was so drawn to this, you know, because he didn't need to spend any time filming the person that's talking, filming the person that's listening. He just, you know, could spend the time, because we didn't have that much time. It's a low budget movie, to just like design one beautiful shot that told the whole story of the scene. So I really liked the whole the first act of this film. It's very cinematic.
I agree. And wait, going back to what you said about the scene looking in the mirror, that was just written on. You really are shivering. I feel bad. I lost my train of thought. No, I got it. Does the script have just like scene direction and or description of like what you're supposed to be doing? With a script with no dialogue, was it just pages of what John wanted to see in that scene?
Well, one of my first mentors, Stellan Skarsgård, he told me that, you know, the dialogue doesn't really matter. It's like what's written in between, that's the movie. And this was just the movie. so it was a really well written script, and I felt like the inner dialogue, that the way that it was written was really interesting and very useful. So I mean the script was very it was a great guide even for all the quiet moments.
And what about John Woo as an action director? He recently told the New Yorker that he directs based on instinct, and obviously his work speaks for itself, and that his instincts are usually right. And for this movie, how was it to work with somebody who directs on instinct, and how did you find your way through those scenes together?
Yeah, I mean the action you can't really do so much on instinct, because then people are going to get killed. So they have to be sort of planned out. So I, you know, of course, John changes his mind and comes up with new things while we're doing it. But yeah, it was also like a great blend of sort of old and new, because a part of the strength of this film was the team that sort of assembled. And you know, there's a whole generation of, you know, stunt performers and coordinators that were very, very excited to be working with John, you know, because he was so important for many of them, how they came up. And so we were able to get like really high level people on this film that just, you know, did a really good job. And then the great decision that John made was he wanted to film the action a little bit more modern, you know, leaning back at wider shots with less cuts. You know, the kind of bad version of action you see on a lot of TV, or it's kind of messy and you know, a lot of cuts and you don't really see what's happening. So, you know, the more lean back version that we did here, it forces the actor to do more of the action, because it's in the cuts, of course, that you switch between the performers. So it gave us an opportunity to create like longer sequences, so we could really build up the intensity.
Let's talk about that scene, just how long it was to shoot and how difficult that was, and were you ever hurt?
Which one?
The end sequence.
Oh no, I didn't get hurt. My mantra for the whole film was just like no permanent damage. And yeah, I mean it was pretty sketchy. We were shooting in Mexico City, and we would you know, we'd go and sort of scout where we were going to shoot. Especially, I remember when we were going to shoot this long stair sequence, and we were walking up there, and I was like, "Oh, that's a 50-foot drop," and and maybe just put some tape here or something like. And there was also always like rusty nails like sticking out in places where so that's when we had a really good team, and the stunt team, they were always like really making extra effort and keeping everyone safe, because it's especially on this lower budget kind of action movies where accidents can happen.
Let's go back to the John Woo of it all. It's obviously, a lot of actors want to work with him and for him. What was he? You both have worked for great directors in your career. What was he like to work for, and maybe what surprised you the most about the way in which he works?
How open he was to suggestions, to ideas, to. I remember there was one specific scene that every time I watch the movie and I laugh so much, because it's where he's in the hospital and she's painting. And he wanted me to give show the apple and be like, eat the apple, and then he just walk. But his idea was different. This was better, but his idea was, you're dying. I have something to paint, but how's it called? When it's standing up, easel. Thank you. So she's painting, and she turns around. She's like, she has a full apple, and it's like. And then he walks over and grabs the apple. And I'm like, can we just do something different? And he was like, what? I'm like, oh my God. Okay, what about if the apple is cut? What about if I'm sitting down? What about if he could still die? But what about if we change a little bit? It was just so funny. And of course, he grabs the apple and then we fall on the ground and we just burst into laughter every single time that we do it, because it was just so funny. It was out of nowhere. I don't know if it was written or not, but it was like, I have an idea, and we're like, oh Jesus, what's gonna happen today?
Yeah, that was some Chinese shit that got lost in translation. He was like, I was like, I've never seen anyone dangle an apple,
especially a full apple, a full apple. He grabbed it, and it was. I mean, and it was. If you watch his movies, he has very, distinct scenes where it's like, wow, that's the. I mean, The Killer, you have so many beautiful scenes, but this one I just didn't understand. So I need to understand what I'm doing to make it believable. And the full apple was like, okay, can we just twist it a little bit? So he was, I was actually very surprised of how open he was. I thought that John was very attached to his ideas, or what the
super
script,
humble and collaborative the whole way through.
Do you have any suggestions or ideas that he, put into practice?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, especially when you're doing a role like this too, where it's the sort of the character's journey, or the character arc is also the sort of narrative of the film. You have it becomes a really close relationship with the director, and John was so open. So we were constantly, back and forth with ideas. And there was one scene the scene when I come back into the son's room for the first time, and there was this this beautiful shot planned of this sort of how there's a light change, and it brings back a flashback and the memory of the son. But then, I had this obsession. I was like, it has to be on the bed. I just imagine. I don't have kids myself, but I imagine that any parent, you have a very, close relationship to your child's bed. That's where you put them to sleep, where you fall asleep next to them. So then this sort of idea that maybe we do. I was like, maybe we should have a flashback with the kid in the bed, and then John went. I mean, he just went oh, good idea, and then he just went away for a little bit, and he came back. I was like, this is what we do, and then he designed this whole shot where he took that idea of doing a flashback with the kid, but he designed a shot where we didn't cut. So, he zoomed in on my eye, and then we, Hollywooded in the kid. And it was a squirmy little kid, so it took many takes. And then it came back out. So many kids. How many kids did we have on this movie? It was.
I don't know. I met one.
Yeah, because there was like.
That's it.
No, but it was because it was 4 ages, and there was at least 3 or 4 kids for each age. So I mean, it was hard to get emotionally attached to all of them. It was like 16 little.
Especially when you don't have any of your own. Let's bring out the kids.
Kelly.
But did you have a favorite? So you made me think of this just when you were talking about that specific scene. Do you have a favorite scene now that I know you've gotten to watch the movie with an audience a couple times? Is there a scene?
For me, it was that one for sure. On the drama side, and then the action part, I think, was the whole stair sequence.
And then you made me think of something when you were talking about John Woo's old work and brilliant work. Heading into this, did you have a favorite John Woo film?
I mean, The Killer is one of my favorite movies of his. Red Cliff is also an amazing film. Face Off. He has so many great films.
That's what I was. It feels like sacrilegious to not mention one of his, but I love his earlier movies in Hong Kong more. But actually, I think I like Face Off more. Yeah.
You did a movie with Nick Cage as well.
Yeah.
Also produced by the producer of this movie.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
I did my research.
Yeah.
Basil Iwanek. I wanted to ask you about this. This is like the cheap Marvel question, but John Woo set me up for this because he recently told the New Yorker that he prefers. They just asked him about superhero movies, and he said he prefers Martin Scorsese movies and he prefers real cinema. And I feel like it's a valid question to ask, just how you feel about that. Just because a movie like this feels like real cinema, but it also is coming from an icon who has influenced so many action directors who would consider his entire resume real cinema. So when you hear a quote like that, I mean, I can even just tell you exactly what he said, is that he said, I like old-fashioned movies, real cinema. There aren't many movies like that lately. And you guys both have, worked for a long time and worked with brilliant directors across a wide variety of projects. But I'm just curious how you feel about that real cinema and avoiding superheroes.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah. I love what he said.
I don't know. I mean, to me, it depends. For example, like making a movie with James Gunn, he's an auteur. He writes the film himself, and he loves the world. He loves the character, and it's to me that's 100% cinema. I think it's when it feels formulaic is when it kind of I check out, but. Yeah, it doesn't really depend on the genre. I feel like it's more how you do it.
Yeah. I only have a few minutes left. We do have some audience questions that I want to get to. But before we do that, I wanted to ask Joel, your resume is brilliant. You've worked on so many great directors, as I mentioned already, across film and television. And I'm just curious, what is it? Is there something you still want to do? Now that the strike is over and work is picking back up, what are you dying to do, or what do you see yourself going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to think on that one.
You think on it. I'm going to go to Catalina. I teased this question backstage. I'm so happy to talk to you, and I especially now, but on the eve of 2024, which will mark the 20th anniversary of a movie that changed your life, Maria Full of Grace. I remember I was at Sundance that year. That movie debuted. It was your first feature film. It won a bunch of awards at Sundance. It also won a bunch of awards outside of Sundance. It landed you your first Oscar nomination and launched your career. I'm just curious if you could say something to that 23-year-old about how her life was about to change, and any advice that you would like to give her. What would you say?
Now that's a question.
That was a softball question to end this interview.
No. Just starting to warm up.
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, like I remember doing that movie thinking that I was doing an HBO movie, and I was very happy because I had HBO at home. So I could watch my movie at home in Colombia.
So you do like watching yourself?
Oh, well, it was my
weren't
first
chiming in,
movie.
though,
It was exciting, but I never in a million years would have thought that my life would change so much in the best way possible, because this is what I love to do. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
Well, you deserved it. It was a brilliant performance, and you continue to turn in brilliant work all these many years later. So it's nice to see you here, and thanks for doing this. And Joel, did you think I have an answer yet, or should we come back to you again? He sort of set you up for that.
I think we've talked enough up here. Yeah.
Okay, we have 2 audience questions. Is that okay? One from Francesca, and this is for Joel. You played a detective, oh, this is kind of my question, but worded better. Thanks, Francesca. That's you. You did a great job. You played a detective, a comic book soldier, an assassin, an astronaut. Is there an occupation you haven't played that you would like to?
It sounds like, checked all my childhood boxes. So is that maybe a fireman? Is that what's left there on that list? I don't know. I'm like, gotta watch my jokes. Too many things come up. I have too many friends here, so it feels like, forget where I am. No, I don't know.
I want to know what that was going to be.
Yeah, you got to watch yourself these days.
Yeah, you really
just
do.
Throw out any joke.
One more question. This one comes from Liberty. Where's Liberty? Thank you, Liberty, for being here. Joel, what kind of music do you listen to in order to get into character for a role like this?
I mean, it depends, but I don't really listen to music to get in. But I'm always listening to dancehall and old reggae, old soul music. Not really dependent on what I need to prepare for.
Catalina, what's on your playlist?
Everything. I have a bunch of Latin music. I have everything. I have a little bit of everything.
Well, let's let them get out of here so they can listen to some music. You guys, thank you so much, by the way. Thank you so much. I really love this.
Thanks so much for coming out, everybody. Really appreciate it.